Welcome back. We're bringing you another talk from an educator who enthusiastically embraces the weird. Keith, tell us about weird.
Well, I keep saying this about every one of these teachers, but I'm like, this is the kind of person I'd want to have as a teacher. And I had a teacher that was a lot like Jason, but yeah, it was pretty obvious that that his students love him. In fact, of all the teachers that were there, he had the biggest crowd of current and former students who showed up and were just surrounding him at the end. In fact, I was standing over with his brother, with Jason's brother, who I met that night for the first time, and he was just kind of watching him, and we was both like, man, he's like, he has such an impact. He said, I hope he knows what he does. And I'm like, yeah, it really is remarkable.
So he has actually made weird cool. Check this out.
I've been teaching for 20 years, and I've heard one question asked of me more times than I can count by my students, their parents, my colleagues, administrators, Bonnie Mwanda, the whole stakeholder continuum. What in the world are you doing? And usually, that question is precipitated by observing something I actually am doing in the classroom or in the hallway or meet the teacher night that by all standards of convention would be considered weird. For example, whenever I encounter a sleeping student or an auditorium full of tired dignitaries such as yourselves, I advocate that you stay awake by flapping your wings. Come on, flap. If you need to wake up, flap, flap. Don't be above it, flap. None of you has ever seen a sleeping bird fly. Now, if that sounds weird, that's okay, because it works. And therefore, I accept weird as a compliment. But I want you to remember something. It is better to be weird than forgotten. You see, weirdness has its own gravity for kids. It's open to wild interpretation and points them towards their imagination's horizon. It's risky and uncomfortable. But I find that my weirdness gives them permission to activate a state of healthy vulnerability that allows me to challenge them across multiple modalities. And it doesn't take long for my students to realize that they're going to explore ideas with me, that their mind's horizon really is the only limit in my classroom. One of my students, Caitlin C.B. Bailey, says, coming into Mr. King's room, you never knew what to expect, but you knew it was going to be enjoyable, unique, and engaging. Now, in order for me to let you understand what I do, I've got to first give you some insight into how my mind works. I am not, nor have I ever been, a linear thinker. I am an explorer, making connections across ideas and domains, roundabout and sideways sometimes. I am an unabashed lover of metaphor. My mind is a kaleidoscope, distilling new patterns and designs with each turn. This allows me to be solution-oriented, which empowers me to think creatively and divergently around the many problems I'm forced to face as an educator in the state of North Carolina. And you may be concretely wondering what exactly a student may experience walking into this weird man's classroom. Well, I'd like to think a sensory smorgasbord. You see, I read Edward Bernays, and he said, visibility is the key to success. And so I manifest that aspect of his philosophy both at the conscious and subconscious level. And so consciously, I may greet my students at the door with, squealer the pig here, or this giant mosquito, or this here horse who currently serves as the Earl of Stool for a phone toilet, which has greater efficacy for confiscating devices from dopamine-addled teenagers than any phone jail you've ever heard of. This here horse and I have been teaching together for years. He is just as real in my class as I am. He has a voice. He speaks to my students. I'm the college board horse. I held that dictates, mandates, and frustrates. You see, I teach an AP seminar class created by College Board. And the problem I was having was that in the minds of my students and the emails of their parents, that monolithic educational institution and I were one and the same. And that is simply not the case. So I needed a way to disassociate from that entity. And The solution presented itself to me one day as I was sauntering about the North Carolina State Fairgrounds, smelling cooked corn and hot dogs. And I looked at a vendor's table, and this horse was looking at me. I said, how much? $1. And I said, sold. And made the single most cost-effective investment in my classroom ever. Because from that day forward, every single word I have ever read to my students that is curated by the AP College Board is read by that horse. And as weird as that was at first, and as weird as it still is today, it works. One of my students, Molly Dawson, says, the use of a stuffed horse facilitates communication in AP seminar and significantly alters the perspective of a rigorous course. The presence of the horse is a running joke, as it's the horse, not Mr. King, torturing us. As weird as it sounds, the horse increases the productivity of the students. End quote. I'd like to say that it doesn't matter whether you embrace talking horses or flapping or posters or phone toilets. If what you're doing is coming from a place of authenticity, of genuine human compassion, then you can make all the difference in a child's life, even when you don't know it. I learned this lesson from that sunshine butterfly that I mentioned earlier. You see, during COVID and remote learning, we were all in different places of pain and loneliness. And this horse and I would get up each day and turn on a Google Meet, and we would teach class to turn off cameras and static avatars. And in all honesty, I didn't even know if anybody was listening, okay? But unbeknownst to me, one of my students was bearing a burden. And this is a burden that if you knew, it would break your heart. And we could find the strongest person here tonight, and you would not want to bear that burden. But at the end of that year, that student wrote me a letter, and she told me her story. She shared her story with me. And she said that every day she would get up and turn on her camera, and that little ray of sunshine is what kept her here on earth in the darkest time of her life. And I cherish that sentiment more than any I have ever received. That is my treasure, because it answered the question of what in the world am I doing? And no amount of legislation, no war on education can ever take that from a teacher like me. I'd like to leave you with one final thought. A vision with wings, as Coach Barry would say. We are in the fourth turning. And as the pages of history turn on us, I pray you will heed my revelation, heed my vision, that the children are the best solution we have. Are you weird enough to be worth remembering to those who will inherit the earth?
Wow, I mean, that's some pretty inspirational stuff. I mean, it had to move people, those who watched today. For those who didn't see it, how do they get a hold of it? Can we watch it somewhere?
They're on YouTube, and we have them linked off of our website. So if you go to WakeEd Partnership, look us up on the web, or look at wakeed.org. Look right across the top, it says EDTalks. You can watch the whole program, or you can watch individual speakers, and read a little bit more about all of these that participated. So, yeah, I would encourage people to take a look at it. They're worth watching. I think you'll come away with a renewed appreciation, if you don't have one, for the stellar teachers we have right here in Wake County Public Schools. Amazing stuff, Keith. Thank you for your time and what you're doing. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, too, for watching. We hope you've enjoyed today's show. If you have any questions or you would like to know more, visit our websites at RaleighCW.com and myRDCTV.com. I'm Bill LeMay. Thank you for watching Community Matters, and we'll see you next week.